Hey, so today we're here with Curtis Hicks from Unida. We're upstairs and your storage facility, the old part of the storage facility. Yep. Place is huge. It's like 100,000 square feet. So we've got some new abrasives we want to talk about, and it's Ekadiamond. So Ekadiamond, Curtis Hicks is the master of all these abrasives, and he's going to give us a little bit of insight and some technical information on what this is. So, Curtis, can you just tell me what is Ekadiamond sponges and what's so special about it? Why, as a painter, should I buy this product?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm excited about this product. Next to EcoSilk Plus, this has been the greatest thing we've come up with. And first, one thing to know is that if you want this sponge in the United States, you got to get it from Paint Life or from us, because that's the only place that you're going to get them, and it's exclusive to the United States. There's two things about this sponge that really separate it from any other abrasive sponge on the market. Most people that are using 1/2 inch, and a lot of your customers, I'm sure, they're typically using it coming around the edge of a cabinet door. So you've got that sharp corner. Right. And any sponge, it doesn't mean they're not good. They're just not built for this, and they will tend to tear. So there you are, tossing a very good brand new sponge with lots of grain because you can't use anymore since you've torn it. I don't know what the substrate is they've put on this, but it's almost like Kevlar. You cannot tear this. I mean, you would have to dig in to tear it. So what we're finding on this, even in big shops that are doing 100,000 doors a week, is that they have cut their sponge usage down by 4 or 5 times simply because it's not tearing. The other thing about sponges is they tend to shed really bad. And when I say shed, what that means is if you take it and rub it together and you put it over a piece of paper, you're going to see a lot of that grain end up on the paper. It's a good way to see it if it's on a white sheet of paper. That's natural with most sponges. This stuff it almost sheds not at all. And the problem with shedding, we even had to come out with a white sponge because it was transparent. So if it did shed, you wouldn't see the little specks of black in your finish, because a lot of times people will see their finish, a little speck of black, it came from the sponge. Right. It landed on the part, you finished it, and now you got a little black speck. So the two main things about this sponge, number one, you practically can't tear it. Number two, it doesn't shed. And the diamond pattern is very unique, because what this is creating for you is some space between these diamond pads, so it does help it keep from loading as quick. Right. Now the cool thing about sponges, just like with EcoSilk Plus, is you can take a air knife and just blow it out really easy if it does load. And they're even washable. I don't know that anybody would ever want to do that, but you can wash them, let them dry back out, and keep using them. I would say the one thing about this sponge is really cut our sponge sales down. Right. But that's a good thing, because we do want to help the customer out there, and this has been a great innovation.
I know that, like the washable part of it, we were accustomed to taking and wetting our sponges to sand Bondo and stuff when we've got a run somewhere. We're scraping out the run, we're Bondoing it, and then sanding it. And I think and that was really to keep it cool, the sandpaper cool, and keep the surface from heating up. I'm not sure if that's necessary with this type of product, and some of that is probably just not understanding how to use the abrasive correctly and stuff, and because heat is your big enemy. And,
the key, and I know with this, obviously it's being done by hand, just in your mind, try not to put that pressure on. I know everybody feels like the harder I sand, the quicker I'm getting this job done. But these grains are little cutting tools, so let them do their work. Right. Just use light pressure. It's going to crack and resharpen and constantly give you a nice cutting tool, and that'll help keep from the loading. Because the more friction you build, the more it's heating up, the more it's going to stick in between the grains. But this one is unique in that it will do a better job of not loading because of the channels in between. Right. It's going to run a little cooler because of that, but the key to that is it's going to load up in that channel rather than into the grain. Right. You're giving it the substrate you're sanding a place to stick to rather than inside the grain.
And I know one of the other frustrating things with foam abrasives is a lot of times, for whatever manufacturing reasons, they can't, identify it with a number and let you know. But you guys have done something kind of unique, and these abrasives right here, they're color coded, and the color coding actually means something. Yep. Can you just tell us what the abrasives are?
And it's a very good point, because on a 1/2 inch sponge, it's really not a way to print to it. If you use a one-sided sponge, you can print to the back, the grit. 1 inch sponge, you'll have it on the front, the blocks. But these, it was always very difficult. But I'd be in a shop myself and have to feel it to know what's going on, because for every color you had different grits. So this is really cool. And the way I would separate this is, first of all, the grits are, the green is 100 grit. Now, when you're talking about grits on sandpaper, that's why in the past we never would tell you what grit it was. We would say it's fine or super fine, because somebody says 100 grit, oh my God, I'm gonna tear something up with that.
Right.
A simple rule of thumb to know about sponge grading is it is made with a 100 grit grain, which is typically a stock removal grain, but because of this foam, you get a lot of recession. So you're getting the tip of that grain. So the best way to do it is take that grain, just as rule of thumb, and multiply it by 2. So 100 grit's gonna typically finish around a 220, 180, 220. 120 is gonna finish more like a 240 to 280, somewhere around there. So just don't get freaked out if you're using something that says 100 grit on a sponge. So the 100 grit is the green, the gold is 120, purple's 150, the blue is 180, and the orange is 220. Now, the way I would separate this, these two here, the 100 grit and the 120 are almost always gonna be used on paint. You know, that just is typically your go-to for in-between coats of paint. When you start getting into coats, seal coats, you need something a lot finer, because you really don't want to cut through. Paint's even a little bit easier to repair than cutting through a seal coat. So 150 is kind of right there in the middle, and we do see pretty good usage on this. But the most popular grit by far for in-between coats of seal coat or seal sanding is going to be the 180.
Right.
And then the 220 if you want it a little bit less aggressive. And quite frankly, with some of this stuff, and one thing, and I think you guys sell it, is the sample pack, where you kind of get a little bit of each. And that's really the best way to do it, because each person's a little different. You know, you got bigger arms than me, so you're probably hitting a little harder. And so you might want to go a little bit finer than I would, but you kind of want to play with that a little bit and get your sweet spot.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you learn something every day. I had no idea why numbers weren't used, and it was identified just by fine or very fine. So that's great. And then just multiplying that number and understanding that's
it's not perfect, but it's close.
Right, yeah.
Just as a rule of thumb, if you multiply it by 2, you know you got finished products here. None of this is made. In fact, if you tried to cut white wood with this, you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, because I would have never thought 100 grit would be for finishing. So that's good to know. Yeah. So cool little fact about the abrasives there. So if you guys got any questions about Ekadiamond sponges, just leave it down in the comment section below. We'll try to answer your questions as soon as we can. We'll see you right here next time on Paint Life TV. Out.